Welcome to Kung Fu Havoc number 2. The following video touches on racist topics. So if you are under the age of 15, maybe 13, then this video is not for you. Go watch me do that. Okay, so racism by default, or racist by default, is the title of this video. There are lots of people in the world who are racist, alright? And those people exist, and we have to accept them and acknowledge that they exist, because if you don't acknowledge a problem, then it's not a problem. No, when you don't acknowledge a problem, is as they said in The Usual Suspects, the only thing the devil ever had to do was prove to mankind that he does not exist, and he will have total reign and domination of the earth, which is exactly what he has done for the last millennium. So, racism by default. Let me explain first off. Racism and bigotry are things that we deal with on a daily basis because we are human, and you have your feelings, and you're entitled to your feelings, and you're entitled to certain actions amongst your feelings, but you also must be willing to deal with the consequences of your actions. Henceforth, unite the right. Henceforth, Charlottesville 2017, where we had these incidences go on, the tiki torches with Jews will not replace us, that kind of shit. All right? Those guys were all out bona fide racist. Without ifs, no ands, no buts. The Klan came in before they came in, and even the Ku Klux Klan didn't cause as much damage as this Unite the Right crap. So, why am I bringing this up? Because most people aren't really relatively racist. Racism is systemic. Racism has its place in society because we, the people, we, society, allow this shit to continue. We allow people who wake up and say, I'm going to raise my child to be a racist. This is why it keeps happening. You know, there's supposed to be only one race, the human race, but no one wants to see or say that shit. No one wants interracial meeting. No one wants interracial children like myself existing. But hey, this shit happened due to slavery and indentured servitude and things that this country, what makes us slightly great also makes us slightly not so great. Just ask some of my Native American ancestors and they'll tell you, yeah, you know, we kind of fracked up by letting people into the country to begin with, and then they took over. So you deal with that. Again, racism by default, or racist by default, is kind of how this shit happens. Now, why is racist by default a thing? Because not everyone who says racist shit is actually a racist. They might just be saying some shit that's fucking real, and it became a problem because you took it in a racist manner. Example, let's see. I love Chinese food. I'm not Chinese, but I'm going to go to a Chinese restaurant. I love Chinese food so much, I'm going to marry me a Chinese girl. Why? Because I want her to cook me Chinese food. Because Chinese people don't eat anything else. Really. Or Chinese people don't eat at KFC. There's your racist example right there. I just made a super racist statement about Chinese people not eating at KFC, yet I can cut on YouTube and there'll be Chinese people going into a KFC. I know Chinese people here in America who eat at KFC. So, yeah, that made me a racist. I just made the biggest racist statement that you could ever hear. Let's do another one. I'm not going to marry this white broad because she don't know nothing about hominy grits. She don't know nothing about soul food, chitlins, and gizzards. And personally, in a real note, all jokes aside, I don't eat that shit. Alright? I do not eat chicken gizzards. I do not eat ham hock thingies and whatever the hell that other shit is that smells real bad and fucks up your house. Yeah, I don't eat any of that soul food shit. I've had people look at me like, are you sure you're black because you don't eat soul food? I was like, well, first and foremost, I'm multicultural. I'm also Cherokee Indian as well as white and black. So no, I don't eat that shit. And if you want to really make something funny, I don't fucking eat corn either. Okay? But I love rice. Yeah, go figure. I love rice. I hate corn, but I love rice. And, you know, not all Asians love rice. Okay? So let's keep it real. Those were some stereotypical shit. And it'd be the same thing with a black guy or a white woman who can't marry a black man because her dad's just straight up racist. You will not marry that man of color and bring those yellow babies into our family. That is not a fucking option. If you try to marry that chink or that Negro, your ass is out of the family. You are out of the will, and those ignorant little mixed babies get nothing. Racism. This is how that shit happens. No one wakes up every day unless you are a pure racist and say, I'm going to raise my child to be a fucking racist. Well, here's the problem with that. There are other races in the world, and we're all in this together. And you can't send your racist child out to school and tell them to call people niggers because they get punched in the mouth. That's a personal story. I have talked about that a few times. I have never forgiven myself for hitting that girl in the mouth for calling me a nigger. And the only reason why I haven't forgiven myself is because I knew martial arts at the time, and I knew better. And my mama didn't raise no man abuser to go around beating up on women. You know? So that's about the only thing that I haven't really forgiven. The reason why was reflex. So racism by default. You fall into this category of being a racist by default for a few examples. Most racist people just hate your ass because of the color of your skin. And before you go saying anything in this video, let me drop it for you, because a lot of people, y'all ain't gonna drop it like it's hot, and y'all all gonna get mad. But for every white person that's racist, there is an equal amount of black people that are racist. There's an equal amount of Asian people who are racist. So if you think that you come from a united facility of people who are not racist, you need to be slapped with a dose of reality. Let me cash that check for you. There are just as many racist people from different ethnicities as there are from people who you assume automatically are racist because you might not have a good standing with white people. I got white people in my family, so clearly they were not exactly rapists, but they weren't racist either. Then again, as far as ancestry goes, I don't know if my white ancestors raped my black ancestors. I don't know that. I don't want to know that, but if that's how it happened, systemically throughout time and history, that's how a lot of mixed kids came into existence. It wasn't by choice, it was by race being taken advantage of. And this happens to Asians, and this happens to whites as well. There have been some white women who have probably been raped by Mandingo in the bushes and was too scared to tell their husband until the baby popped out, and the baby popped out all kinds of caramel and almond, and the daddy of the wife or the whatever lady goes out there and he goes, okay, which one of y'all done raped my daughter? Now I got to fucking kill you. Because now, you know, the daddy's not sure if he wants to keep the baby or sell the baby into slavery. Hey man, this shit happens. I probably just piss you all off with that, but this shit happens. This is probably how one of my ancestors who's white got here. Alright? This is probably how that happened, which is how we got here. You know, same thing with my Native American side. There have been stories of Native Americans abducting white ladies because to them that was something they'd never seen before. A blue-eyed, blonde chick riding in a stagecoach. You know, we're gonna take her. You know, this is done. And the reason why I did that, why did I bring that up? Because this has also happened to Asian women on boats on the way over here by celestial bride means of white men grabbing them from Europe and taking them from Asia and saying, this is going to be my celestial bride. I'm taking her to America, and then when I get to America, I don't want her, so I'm going to throw her ass to the lion's den, and she's going to get raped 95 times, and we're going to have this happen a lot. So when you don't know about your history of the world, this is how racism by default happens. So the white lady that is raped by a black man, now she fears all black men. So when she sees you walking down the street and she goes, which means she crossed a street because she's seen you, and she walks all the way down and then cuts back over to get away from you, is because she's probably more than likely had a bad experience with somebody who is black. So in her instincts, in her immediate thoughts of mind, she's scared of all black people, especially black men. Now, top that off, let's say she didn't have a bad experience with black men. She might have got her ass beat by a black chick. So now, she's still afraid of black people. So she sees a black man versus a black woman, she knows it it's more than likely the black man will probably rape her. But the black woman won't rape her. The black woman will just beat the fuck out of her. So rather than take the chance of walking past and saying hello, I'm going to take my chicken shit ass across the street, walk down the street, and cross back over to the side of the street that you were on because I'm scared as fuck of you. Racism by default. People's bad experiences through other people's races is what also makes people racist by default. I've had a lot of bad experiences from racial incidents. Like I said, I can count maybe 2 or 3 from white people, 1 or 2 from Asian people, and about 20 from black people. And that's counting from kindergarten to college. All right? And the thing with that is, the only place where I didn't really ever experience racism was in Canada and when I was in the Army. There's only 2 places where your race didn't matter because the only color that mattered was green. And in Canada, your race didn't matter because everybody up there is just fucking beautiful. And I never heard the word nigger. I never heard the word half-breed. I went into the Korean store, they treat me like I was Korean. I went into a black store, they treat me like I was black. No, they didn't follow me around the aisle. Just to get that out the way, they didn't treat me like an American black person. They treated me like I was a normal person, where when you go to a store around here, if it's not ran by a black person, people are generally following you up and down the aisle to make sure that you actually have money in your pocket and that you're going to buy something. Yes, I've had that happen. That was one of my other sorry-ass experiences of being colored and walking into a place that I worked, named Sears, where the store detective followed me around the whole store, and the whole time he's following me, somebody's actually robbing the fucking store. But instead of him going after the robber, he was after me. I watched the white guy steal shit. Why did I not stop the white guy? Because I was too busy worried about getting arrested for trying to go buy a tape recorder from a place that I used to work at. And the store detective, they never took their eyes off my black ass when I'm walking through the store. He probably didn't think I was black. He probably thought I was Mexican. But either way, he still knew that I was a person of color, and he followed me around the store. And that's like only one of the second baddest experiences I've ever had with white people. And as for black people, there's an astonishing amount of reverse racism that I have had with black people. Now, for Asians, which also includes Native Americans, I can count 2. All right? One, way back in grade school with me and Mr. Zhang, getting to arguing over rice cakes. And then I kind of found out that he wasn't Chinese. He was from Vietnam. I kind of started that one, so I was kind of guilty on that. Because, I don't know, we got into an argument. I didn't start the argument, but I made it a racist argument when I told him to go back to China and eat some fucking rice cakes. And he said, fuck you, we're from Vietnam, and we eat goddamn rice cakes. So, yeah, I had to go there because he had me. And when people have you, like they got you, and you have no comeback, you have no quick whip, you have nothing, it gets racial. It really does. Just by default, it got racist. I didn't know how to make a comeback with whatever the hell it was that he said, so that's when I threw in, go back to China and get your rice cakes. And then that's when he threw in, fuck you, I'm from Vietnam, and we don't eat no fucking rice cakes. But he never called me a nigger. I think he called me a half-breed, which is probably what happened. Which is probably what caused me to go to him being Chinese, because I didn't even know Vietnam really existed, even though I was born at the end of the end of the Vietnam War. So that happened. The Native American incident, I was trying to date this Native American girl who was in a wheelchair team from wherever tribe they came from. But they played wheelchair basketball, and we were at the Jefferson School, and I was talking to this girl, and we were getting along very well, and she could have very well have been my future wife, had the other wheelchair-bound bastard come over, and, she was able-bodied. She could get out. She had, like, a leg issue, but that didn't change how I viewed her. She was very pretty. And he rolled over and said, hey, you can't be talking to a high-ranking member in the clan's daughter because you are not pure blood. Now, growing up with a Native American grandmother down in Smithfield until I was like 11 or 12 years old, she never, ever, ever in her life told me anything about being fucking pure blood. She never even let that be a factor. Her mother, who was full-blooded Cherokee, never, ever, ever told me about you not being pure blood. Never. That shit never came into option. Again, racism by default. So I'm having that flashback while this guy's talking to me about me not being pure blood, and I don't have the right to mess with a full-blooded Native American girl. And that hurt my feelings because she was very, very beautiful. Yeah, she had a little issue, so she had to play wheelchair basketball as her sport. She had like a little leg issue. I can't remember what the hell they called it. It wasn't she wasn't crippled, but she couldn't walk right. She could walk, but she couldn't walk right. It's like gap-legged, bow-legged. There's something wrong with her, but I didn't see that. I'm not that kind of person where you're just gonna go off and judge a person because they have a little bit of a glitch. And you know, that hurt my feelings a little bit because I was like, my great grandmother was full-blooded Cherokee, and she always told us as Cherokee. Well, let me rephrase that because I seem to be the only grandchild that stayed with her. She always told us that we'd always have a place in the Cherokee Nation because we're of Cherokee blood. Because she was of Cherokee blood. She never mentioned other tribes and pure blood and all this other shit. And I mean, when this guy was talking to me, I'm thinking back to her, and I'm thinking to myself, I should punch this fucker out of his wheelchair. Then I was thinking to myself, no, I know Kung Fu. I should kick this fucker out of his wheelchair. Because he made her walk away. So I don't know what power he had over her, but he made her walk away while he was giving me this lecture about not being pure blood and shit. So racism by default, I was like, shit, I really hate this tribe of Native Americans because of this shit. I mean, they weren't Cherokee. But at the same time, that doesn't mean other Cherokees won't treat me the same way. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, goddamn, dude. I'm part Native American. The fact that I'm not pure blood, that's not my fault. But this guy just did not want me touching or talking or speaking to her. And for the next few days while they were here, she was not allowed to speak to me. If she seen me coming, she avoided me like the Black Plague. And I never got to talk to her after that, after he had made her walk away. And that still haunts me to this day that, that I never got to know what we could have been because this asshole, oh, you're not pure blood, so you can't be talking to our girls. You're part indigenous, but you're on the low level of the totem pole versus where she is. And the last thing I told him before the conversation ended, I said, yo, dude, with all due respect to your pure-bloodedness, is maybe you would let her make that choice. Because we was about the same age group. I think I might have been maybe 3 or 4 years older than her. Maybe. Not really sure. But we were in this, she was of legal age. And I was like between 23 and 25. And, I told him, maybe you should let her make that choice. That's kind of not up to you. And so wherever you are, young lady, I'm really sorry that we didn't get to know each other. But blame it on the asshole in the wheelchair who said I was not pure blood. All right. So the racism by default in that is those who have had bad experiences become racist because of their bad experience. And when you think about that, the fact that I am not a racist is because of the simple fact that I am of multi-ethnicity. I don't have the right to be a racist. Yeah, I can have a bad racial experience, but that does not give me the right to hate every white person because one white person did something bad to me, to hate every Native American because one Native American did something bad to me, to hate every black person because one black person did something bad to me. But a lot of us feel that we can do that, which is why you have your racism by default. The second part of that racism by default is really simple. You may not be racist, but you may say some racist ass shit. Sorry, thought something was on the ground chewing up my shed or something. 1 second. Well, fucking me. Sorry about that. When you have bad experiences, a bad experience will change you forever. And especially when it's a bad racist experience. When it is a bad racist experience, it warps your sense of logic. It warps your reality of why this person hates you. And it's the same thing. It can be done with rather it's racism or genderism because there are people who have things against the Alphabet Squad and they don't really want to associate with them. And I'm like this, a lot of people, if you don't know a person's gay and you're friendly with them and you don't know they're gay and you don't care if they're gay, then you're good. Because you're like me. I don't give a flying fuck if a person is gay or not. Hey, look, do you just understand that I like boobs, real boobs, the ones God created, not something made in a science lab. And no offense to you if you're transgender and I'm offending you now, I have the right to know who I'm dating. I have the right to know where I'm sticking my goods. All right? So don't take that personally. That's just the way I feel about that, because I don't think that if I'm entering a relationship, I can't go into a relationship based on a lie. All right? I can't do that. I don't want to be lied to, so I'm not going to lie to a person. If that doesn't make sense to you, you need to go read some more books. So, racism by default, because of the simple fact that you have had a bad racist experience, can be that thing that turns you into a hardcore racist. You could have been a little child beaten up by a bunch of black kids on the playground and shit. And because kids don't really see race, but you can remember that shit. And then, let's say you get beat up real bad and your parents have to take you, you go to the hospital and all that shit. And so your parents start hating black people. And they raise you to hate black people because black people did something to you. And the next damn time, like the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, every time you see a black person, you want to walk up to them and mollywop the shit out their ass and say, yeah, you're probably that black guy that whooped my ass at the playground when I was a tiny kid. That black kid's probably gone, probably dead from doing dumb black stuff. But now you hate all black people because of that. And even black people that have done nothing to you, you hate them because of that bad experience. Racist by default. The same can be said if you're a white guy and you get beat up by some Asian dudes. Because just about everybody on earth has that fear that all Asians know Kung Fu. All right? I have not met too many people who will look at an Asian person and say, I'm going to go fuck that Asian dude up. Because they look back and they see somebody like Donnie Yen, like, oh, boom, and like, oh, this guy's like Donnie Yen. I ain't fucking with that dude, man. I know a lot of black cats that's scared of Asian cats for the simple fact that they fear that Asian dudes all know Kung Fu. Newsflash for you. Not all Asians know Kung Fu. Also, newsflash for you. Everybody can learn martial arts. In fact, the one thing that people hate me for, and I know this is totally off topic, is because I always tell people that everybody knows martial arts. They knew martial arts before martial arts had a name. It just got 1,000 different names because anybody can kick and punch. Anybody. And you can teach anybody to kick and punch. It's just a matter of who's teaching you what style. That is the difference maker. Your ethnicity has nothing to do with the fact that you can kick somebody in the face. But for all stereotypical persons, and for all racism by default, if you are a white guy or a black guy who's gotten your ass beat by an Asian dude who knows Kung Fu, you become a racist towards Asian dudes because you are afraid that they're going to kick you in the face. Boom. It's like, that Asian dude, man, he's a bad motherfucker. I'm not fucking with him. But then you start seeing people like Billy Blanks, Chuck Jeffries, Michael Jackson. Wait, what do they all have in common? They got the same skin tone as me. They're all darker than me, but they got the same skin tone. And what do? They kick people in the face. So, now you understand your racism by default by the simple fact that my nose is running. Sorry. So, you understand that, a lot of people are racism by default by bad experiences. Black, white, Asian women, if they get raped by any man, they become sexist by default and start just not trusting men. The only men that they can trust, unless that man is their father that's doing the raping, are their fathers and male family members, because they're pretty sure that those family members are going to be out for blood for the men that raped their siblings. And then, if a black woman hates white men, it can be because of the job, or it could be because she was raped by a white man, or it could just be straight up fucking hate because she might have been raised to just hate white men. She may have watched white men do bad shit to her father. Maybe not physically, but maybe systemically. Maybe they kept him from getting jobs, and instead of him working in a place for 60 some odd years and never getting a break, that could lead her to hating white men. It can be said the same thing for Asian. It doesn't have to be bad, but it can still be something that's so small but still bad that it affects you for the rest of your life, and you become a systemic racist person by default. Now, let me explain this to you. One of the worst white experiences that I've had with white people, and there's only one white guy, just one, and it changed me for a very long time. I don't like being called chief. Right? It's like being called chief is the same for me as being called nigger. I don't like being called nigger, but I don't like being called chief even more, because most people, they don't know that I'm actually half black. Some people just think that I'm either a Mexican or half Native American, but they don't know what the other half is. So I'm like, yeah, it ain't too many other races that you can be mixed with and have this skin tone. But most of the time, you know, I get more Native American insults than black insults, because you can only call me a nigger once or twice. But, you know, redskin, chief, half-breed, you know, I've gotten them all. And one time for 3 years, when I worked at Kegler's from 16 to 19, this one white guy, and I've said this before, tons and tons of videos, I've made videos about this, where the guy kept calling me chief. I got jumped out there on my job by some white cats also. So, you know, I've had a whole lot of worser experience with blacks, but those were like the worst ones with white people, and that was at Kegler's when I worked there, where I was showing off martial art moves, and a friend brought in two of his friends, and then they tried to jump me. And then I had a white friend at work who watched the whole thing unfold and never came up there to help me. So I should probably really hate white people, right? But no, I don't, because shit happens. Understand that. Understand that shit does happen. And you can't blame every white person for two redneck motherfuckers jumping me on my job, and another friendly but possibly redneck dude who would not stop calling me chief for 3 years straight. I can't get mad at other white people for that, because that would make me a racist. Because then I would be racist by default, and I would be, oh, I don't like these white people because they keep calling me chief. Okay. That just made me a racist. Now, I'm going to make a second video about being racist by default, but this will mostly be about racist statements. And then I'm going to go post this shit.